All right. Last guy on the maybe kind of winners list, but not all in. Tyler Higbee. No Gerald Everett. He's been glorious for his value in the past. It's actually true, I would say. His value has not been super high, and he has produced a decent amount. All right, sell me on Tyler Higbee if you dare.
Now, get how crazy these splits are. I've never actually seen anything quite like this. When one player's removed, a player go from like this is the most drastic example I've ever seen. So he's only had 5 games without Gerald Everett across his career. You might remember those games because they were 2 seasons ago at the end of the year where no tight end was on more championship rosters than Tyler.
Yeah.
He had a crazy end to 2019. Only him and Brashad Perriman, the 2 highest owned guys on fantasy championships, just still blows my mind. But in the 24 games with with Gerald Everett, 7 points on average, 3 receptions a game, 2 touchdowns over a course of a season, 32 yards. Just
pedestrian numbers.
Pedestrian would be kind on those numbers. Like not usable, hideous, disgusting. You don't want him on your team. Awful. Without Gerald Everett in 5 games, he averaged 23.24 fantasy points per game. That would be 3 more points than Travis Kelce averaged last year in a record-setting year. 7.8 receptions, a touchdown per game, so 16 over the course of a season. On 160 targets was the pace, and nearly 100 yards per game. Was on pace for 1,510 yards. So we're talking a 1,510 yards, 16 touchdown, 125 catch season from Tyler Higbee in the games where he did not have Gerald Everett play.
Well, and I mean, obviously that's not sustainable, but you could chop a big chunk out of that and still have a real good tight end season.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm hoping happens. They add Deshaun Jackson. I mean, that's obviously a different type of weapon, so I don't think that eats into his workload too much. I don't think we're not getting that pace. And I don't know that I'm overly optimistic that we even get like half of it. But the fact that that existed still has to at least suggest there's a ceiling here that could win leagues. And after last year's dud, a lot of people bought into it. The last 5 games, the recency bias had people buying Higbee as like a round 9-10 guy. I think this year you're going to find him fall to the last end of your drafts, and people are going to forget that ceiling existed. So this is just a reminder that Tyler Higbee won more leagues than anybody else in 2019. And the guy that was in his path, once he was removed, that facilitated that breakout, is now gone. So just saying, maybe, just maybe Higbee could be a monster.
All right, before we get into our last 3 guys, which are guys that have won so far, but things could change, I just want to remind everybody to give us a like. The Wolf said he was going to do it at least one more time throughout the podcast. He's been sleeping on that, but he's been just spitting out information, like one of those old supercomputers from like the 50s. So you'll forgive him for getting about that. Give us a like. It really helps out on any of the, whatever you're watching on Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. When you listen to the podcast, like that one, subscribe, give us a rating, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and that's a good point out too. Like a lot of people do catch us live, and that's awesome. We appreciate it. We love having you live. We have 20 comments already. Would love to see that number. We had some podcasts in the season where we got like 200 something questions. It was awesome.
Right, where we had to I had to physically pull myself away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like 4 hours later, that was the best. But if you do prefer audio, we do have this all in podcast form. The Fantasy Fullback Dive on iTunes. You can find us there. So check that out. And all these news we're breaking down, if you prefer written format and you like to read in addition to listen, you can just find all this at the rotostreetjournal.com/stockwatch, where we just hit all these little quick hitters, or find it in our app. Search Roto Street Journal, only on Apple right now. We're trying to work and get on the Android phones as well for all you weirdos that don't use Apple phones.
When you said if you like it in written form, I thought you were going to say we had one of these interns like jotting all this down by hand, like transcribing the podcast in shorthand.
Exactly. Love it.
All right.
Yeah, check out all that type of content. Well, if you love the video, great. Stick with us there. But if you prefer audio, you can find our podcast. You can find all our written content at rotostreetjournal.com, specifically for these little blurb hits, rotostreetjournal.com/stockwatch. And thanks again.
Speaking of watching